guys would like this because it's obviously relaxing, and lately I've been wanting to watch like to get to sleep, like reading story. So this is the book. It's The Girl of Ink and Stars by Kiran Millwood Hargrave. So I've had this book for actually ages, but I just haven't read it. I've read it since Christmas, I think. I got it for Christmas. But I am actually currently reading another book, but I don't want to carry on reading that because I've already started it, so I don't want to like read it to you and you don't know what's happening, you know. So we're gonna read this one. Let me know if you like these videos, like reading ones, because I can do more. This is what it looks like. Okay, so I'll read the blurb. Forbidden to leave her island, Isabella dreams of the faraway lands her father once mapped. When her best friend disappears, she's determined to be part of the search party. Guided by an ancient map and her knowledge of the stars, Isabella navigates the island's dangerous forgotten territories. But beneath the dry rivers and dead forests, a fiery myth is stirring from its sleep. So that sounds really cool. So let's begin. This is a tale of wonder and courage. So the Isle of Joya. I think it's Joya, that's how you say it. This break, Gramera, latitude and longitude. Okay, let's begin. Chapter 1. They say the day the governor arrived, the ravens did too. All the smaller birds flew backwards into the sea, and that is why there are no songbirds on Joya. Only huge, ragged ravens. I'd watch them perch on the rooftops like omens, and try to squint them into the chaffinches and gold crests that drew from memory. If I managed hard enough, no, oh my goodness, why can't I read? Okay. If I imagined hard enough, I could almost hear them singing. Why did the songbirds leave, Da? I'd asked. Why can't I read? Start again. Okay, let's begin. They say the day the governor arrived, the ravens did too. All the smaller birds flew backwards into the sea, and that is why there are no songbirds on Joya. Only huge, ragged ravens. I'd watch them perch on the rooftops like omens, and try to squint them into the chaffinches and gold crests that drew from memory. If I imagined hard enough, I could almost hear them singing. Why did the songbirds leave, Da? I'd ask. Because they could, Isabella. And the wolves, the deer. Da's face would darken. Seems the sea was better than what they were running from. Da would tell me another story then, about the girl warrior Arinta, or about Joya's mythical past as a floating island, and refused to say more about the wolves and the backwoods birds. But I kept asking, until the day came when I found my own answers. The morning it began was like any other. I woke in my narrow bed, sunrise just starting to brighten the mud walls of my room. The smell of burnt porridge hung on the air. Da must have been up for hours, as it took a long time for the fire to heat the heavy clay pot. I could hear Miss La, our hen, scratching about outside my room, seeking out crumbs. She was 13 years old. Where am I? Same as me. But even though it's young for a person, it's very, very old for a chicken. Her feathers were grey, her mood was black, stepped over Miss La, who squawked as I scattered her small pile of crumbs. She narrowed her misty eyes and pecked at my ankles, chasing me further into the main room where we ate, talked and planned adventures. A big bowl of blackened porridge sat on our large pine plank table, marooned among a sea of maps. More of Dar's maps were stuck to the walls, and they rustled as I passed, like a talking breeze. I traced the papers with my finger, as I did every morning, watching how the silver pigment of Africa's rivers met those of Egypt, how Egypt clung to the curve of Europa Bay, like one hand grasping another across the sea. On the opposite wall hung the sketchy coast of Africa and its dragging ocean currents, labelled with strange, wondrous names: the frozen circle, the vanishing triangle, the cerulean sea. The paper was dyed a beautiful deep blue, and the currents were picked out in thread against it. Dar had used a needle thin as hair for these, gold for cerulean, black for the triangle, white for the frozen circle. But past the eastern coast, everything stopped. Only one word broke the blankness: incognito, unknown. I could almost feel Dar's disappointment in the long dried ink of the word. Unfavourable tides on his last trip meant an early return to Joya, and Dar never again made it across that wide expanse before the governor arrived on our island. Governor Adori closed the ports and made the forest that stretched coast to coast between our village of Grimera and the rest of the island into a border, banishing anyone who resisted his rule to the other side. Grimera was cut off from the rest of Joya, and the forest was strung with thick thorns and enormous bells to warn the governor's guards if anyone came through. I had never heard the bells ring. Dar dreamt of filling in the gaps on his Amrika maps, whereas what I wanted, more than anything else, was to cross the forest border and chart the forgotten territories which lay beyond, though I had never told him so. There was only one map that showed the whole of our island, and it hung in Dar's study. I called it Mars Map because it had been passed down through her family for generations, maybe ever since Arinda's time, 1,000 years ago. It had always felt like a sign that Ma and Dar were meant for each other, that he was a cartographer and her only heirloom was a map. Each of us carries the map of our lives on our skin, in the way we walk, even in the way we grow. Dar would often say, "See here, how my blood runs not blue at my wrist, but black. Your mother always said it was ink. I am a cartographer through to my heart. Fetch the jug, would you?" Dar's voice made me jump, pulling me back into the room. I dragged a chair to the shelves, carefully taking the jug from high up and put it on the table next to the porridge. It was forest green and special, because it was the last thing Ma had made. We used it only on the first day of school, and on birthdays and feast days. Dar kept it out of reach and washed it with great care. I could remember Ma, sometimes, dark-eyed and mostly smiling, smelling of the black clay she worked with, making pots for the villagers and delicate pieces for the governor. Or maybe I imagined her like the songbirds. "Good morning, little one," Dar limped from the kitchen. I rushed to take the milk pail and cups he was carrying. "You shouldn't walk without your stick," I scolded. Dar had broken his leg as a young man, leaping from the jetty of an Egyptian port onto a moving ship, and now used a walking stick carved from a fragment of his great-grandfather's fishing boat. It was my favourite thing, out of the many favourite things peeling green door gently behind me. On to chapter 2. Our street ran in a straight, steep line down to the western sea, and all the houses were built the same. A long row of mud huts with straw roofs that Luke thought looked sweet. I thought that they looked as if one good gust of wind could send them all tumbling into the water. I normally ran to the market square, skidding downhill on my heels, because the ravens like to fly low and running put them off. Today, though, I settled for a fast walk. After all, I was almost at the top of the school now. It didn't seem right to run like a little child. Masha, who lived across the street, was standing in her doorway. I waved, trying to see past her into the house. Looking for someone, she smiled, her lined face crinkling like old paper. Pablo's already left. You know the governor likes them to be at work before dawn. Masha's son, Pablo, had been born when she was already old, her belly swelling even as her hair turned grey, and her face creased with age. Masha called it a miracle, and Pablo was miraculous. Gabbo and I had always been in awe of him, as all the villagers were, because of his strength. Aged 10, he could lift his parents, one over each shoulder. Having a piggyback from Pablo felt like flying, but it had been a long time since I'd seen him. 2 years ago, when his mother's back got too bad, Pablo left school and took her place as a labourer, although Masha pleaded with him not to. Now 15, he pulled carts as if they were paper, and cared for the governor's horses too. He took the present for Loop, Masha added, wrinkling her nose. I knew she didn't understand why I chose to be friends with the governor's daughter. I told him to hide it like you asked. Thank you, I said. Maybe I'll see him tomorrow. Maybe, but her voice was not hopeful. He was always up before sunrise, home after dark. I waved goodbye, shouldered my satchel, and started down the hill. From this high up, Grimira looked like a wheel, or a starburst, with the market square at its centre and streets like spokes spiking outwards, some ending at the wide, calm harbour that bottlenecked into the sea, ripe with fish. On a clear night, the stars settled on its surface like water lilies. The governor's ship was moored there, as always. Dar said it was carved from a single Afric baobab trunk. The baobab must be an enormous tree, because the hull nearly spanned the width of the port, the mast arrowing towards the sky, the sails stowed. It crouched over the fishing fleet like a mountain, huge and unmoving. Like everything the governor had, it took up far more space than it ought to. To the east, his house glinted in the sunrise, built from black basalt and as big as 5 ships. The mansion sat between the blue sea and the green forest, spreading out over the fields like a storm cloud. From here, though, it looked small enough to squash between my forefinger and thumb. Below it was the village, with the school halfway between. The old school building had been small but bright, and we had painted the walls rainbow colours with whatever dyes Dar could spare, but then the governor had knocked it down. Loop had decided she'd had enough of being taught alone at home and demanded to be sent to the local school like the rest of us. Governor Adori had rebuilt it from stone, twice as big, because if his daughter was going, it had to look grander. Not for me, you understand, Loop had said with a sad smile. She adopted an even posher voice to add, to uphold the family honour. We weren't allowed to paint the walls of the new school. A lot of children were unkind to Loop because of that, but I knew it wasn't her fault. Behind the governor's house, closest to the forest, was the orchard, where I had never been. I squinted at the ant-like specks of the labourers there, and wondered which one was Pablo. To the west, the black sand of the beaches was almost covered by the incoming tide. We were not allowed to be on the beaches at high tide, and no one was allowed in the water unless they were launching one of the governor's boats. My toes itched. Dar had described being in the sea, but it was not the same as trying it for myself. Above the beaches were the so we could walk to school together, even though it meant she had to get up almost as early as the labourers. When I got to the square, a queue was already forming for the well. More and more people used it since the river Arundara began drying up. All the stalls were open, selling fish and grain and leather. Most of the stalls belonged to the governor, their cool blue awnings like a patch of sky, with the honey stall a bright sun yellow in the middle. As I made my way towards the barrel, someone grasped my wrist. I jumped, stumbling against a nearby stall, and vegetables tumbled to the dusty ground. "Hey," the stallkeeper growled. "What do you think you are doing?" I turned to see who was gripping me. It was a woman dressed in green robes, which meant she worked in the orchards. She should already be there. Latecomers were sometimes whipped. "I'm sorry," the woman said to the stallkeeper, without taking her eyes from my face. "Isabella Rios." "Yes," I said. "Who? Something has happened." She clutched my wrist harder. She was so small, her face almost level with mine. "What do you think you are doing?" the stallkeeper repeated, stepping out from behind his piles of potatoes. "Kata," hissed the woman, ignoring him. "Have you seen her?" I frowned. Kata Rodriguez. Kat was in my class at school, but we'd only spoken of God a couple of times before. The woman nodded fiercely. "I'm her mother. She said you were friends. I thought maybe you knew where she was." I shifted uncomfortably. It was true that I was nicer to Kata than anyone else, but she was very quiet, and mostly people ignored her. "I'm sorry," I began. I've looked everywhere. She wasn't there when I woke her up. The woman broke off, breathing hard. Her hand fluttered to her chest as if she could not feel her lungs. "You, what are you doing here?" Kata's mother jumped. One of the governor's men was striding towards us, the crowd parting like wheat before his blue tunic. "If you see her, send her home," the woman said to me hurriedly, face twisted with worry. And then she was gone, running in the direction of the governor's estate. "What a mess," tutted the storekeeper, starting to pick up the vegetables. "No, don't help. You've caused enough trouble already." Dazed, I walked to the corner of the market square where Loop and I always met. Something in the woman's face had shaken me, right to the bones. I hoped Kata was all right. "Isa." I spun around as Loop came running across the square, satchel flying. The other villagers shrank back from her. The governor's daughter did not have many friends, not that Loop cared. "I don't give a fig," she'd said to one of the girls, teasing her about the fuzzy plaits her mother insisted on. "Isabella likes them, and that's enough for me." We made an odd set, Loop and I. She as tall as a near-grown boy, and I barely reaching her shoulder. She seemed to have gotten even taller in the months since I had last seen her. Her mother would not be pleased. Signora Adori was a petite, elegant woman with sad eyes and a cold smile. Loop said she never laughed, and believed girls should not run, nor have any right to be as tall as Loop was getting. She squeezed me tightly and then drew back, eyeing me up and down. "Still so short," she said enviously, then frowned. "What's wrong? You've gone all pale. Did your da not let you out in the sun this summer?" "Mama does that, but sometimes I sneak out." "Kata's missing." I pushed the words out. "I just saw her mother." "Kata." I rolled my eyes impatiently. "The girl who sits at the back." Loop shifted from one foot to the other. She had that look on her face, like Pep sauntering away from a broken dish. I stared at her. What, said Loop, pulling her satchel higher onto her shoulder. "You know something?" I stepped forward. "No, I don't." She stepped back. I raised my eyebrow the way Da had taught me. Loop wilted. "I'm sure it's nothing. It's just, she was working in the kitchen this summer, and I asked her to go to the orchard for me yesterday to get some." The orchard. The sick feeling in my stomach was back. "Loop, you know we're not allowed." "Yes, of course I know, but I hadn't had dragon fruit in ages. I needed to have them on my birthday, didn't I?" I others got caught. She's probably in the Daedalo right now. Luke waved her hand dismissively. Still on about that place. I've never even seen it, and I live there. It was typical that Luke should not notice something right under her nose, and that the the labyrinth, was right under her nose, because Governor Adori had built his house directly over the natural tunnels that were now his prison. Masha's husband had served a decade there before he died. Luke flung her arm around my shoulders. Come on, grumpy guts, cat'll be fine. She began to propel me along the narrow street towards the fields. She'll already be in class, probably stuffing her face with my dragon fruit. I'll let you have some. They're so delicious. And don't forget the fireworks tonight. Luke hated the dark, but she loved fireworks. They were extraordinary, with their beautiful colours and falling starshine, but they scared Pep too much for me to like them. Papa's let me pick the colours. They're gold ones, a blue one, 2 red ones. I let Luke's voice wash over me as we took our shortcut across the fields. She was probably right. Even if Kata had been caught, surely the governor's men wouldn't have thrown a girl into the Daedalo just for stealing fruit. I promised myself I'd be extra nice to Kata at school, maybe even invite her to watch Luke's birthday fireworks from my garden. Oh, and you haven't seen this, said Luke, stopping suddenly and jerking me to a halt. What? Luke untucked a thick gold chain from her dress and held it out on her palm. A gold locket glinted in the sunlight, engraved with a shape I recognised. That's Afric, where Papa is from, said Luke. He gave it to me for my birthday. It was my grandmother's. What's inside? Luke shrugged. Dar says I'm not allowed to open it until I'm older. He's the only one with the key. It's lovely. It's heavy, said Luke, but I like it. It was all I got, though. She looked at me expectantly. I tried to pretend I didn't know what she was waiting for, but she was grinning so stupidly I couldn't keep it up. I took out a scroll from my satchel. Happy birthday, I said, grinning too. A map marked with an X. It was a very simple map, with no star lines and a compass that was only an arrow with an N on the end. I hadn't had time to make it a proper hunt with lots of clues. Treasure, I squeezed Loop's fingers. No point just standing there, Loop shouted, bounding ahead. Race you. With her long legs, Loop should have been the favourite, but she was as uncoordinated as a one-legged rabbit, and so we ran together. My lungs filled as I ran across the dry field, bags slapping my side. Kata will be at school, Luke will get her dragon fruit, and everything will be all right. At last, Luke reached the X, the abandoned rabbit warren where Pablo had hidden the present for me. Inside sat a small twist of blue paper. She unwrapped the simple-plated bracelet, made with the leftover thread I had begged from Masha. Woven in amongst the multicoloured strands was a single thread of gold I had stolen from Dar's study. He never made special maps anymore, so I didn't think he would notice. I love it. Luke wound it around her wrist and tied the knot. It's my favourite present. Only Luke would prefer a scrappy piece of string to a pure gold locket. It was another thing I liked about her. Come on, I said, taking her sweaty palm and pulling her towards the low rectangle of school. Being late for the first day might be all right for Lupadori, but Senora Phyllis would not forgive plain old Isabella Rios so easily. We broke into another run, hoping not to hear the bell, and arrived in a dead heat, panting and laughing, stitches needling our sides. I won, Luke gasped. No, me. I beat you. Girls, Senora Phyllis appeared at the school door, her face sour as a lemon. When she recognised Luke, her face went as sour as 2 lemons. Senorita Adori, you should have been told. I went someone straight to your father. What? No, I sent someone straight to your father. What? Luke frowned. Why? There's been a... Well, your father will tell you, I'm sure. School is closed today. Closed. each chapter.